talk of this session by Rakesh Pawar, and he will speak on remark on Guston conjecture for Milnor K theory. So Rakesh, you can begin now.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so I want to talk about Guston conjecture for Milnor K theory. Okay, this is let me close this. Okay, so Milnor invented this K theory of fields in 70s, 69, 70s, where he found a connection between. So he was interested in studying quadratic forms, and he made a connection between quadratic forms and Galois cohomology via this his K theory, which was later known as Milnor K theory. So let me try to define it. So let F be a field. So you take look at this tensor algebra of the group F star, where F star is F minus 0. So in nth degree, it is just F star tensor n, and you go modulo this ideal. So actually, okay, I should have this. There is some typo in the notation. I should have taken direct sum, and then go by model the homogeneous ideal. So what is this ideal? Is you look at the symbols A tensor B, such that their sum is 1. So these are non-zero elements in the field whose sum is 1, and you look at the two-sided ideal generated by this, all this two-sided homogeneous ideal generated by these symbols in this tensor algebra, and then you call it a Milnor K theory. So this is just abstract, looking a priori unmotivating definition. And let me explain some symbols. So you look at the nth degree. So a symbol will look like A1 tensor, a tensor of A1 and A2 up to AN, and you denote in this quotient as curly bracket A1 up to AN. So this is generally referred as a symbol of degree n in a Milnor K theory of a field. Okay, so this satisfies some nice relations. So this is a graded ring, graded by integers greater than or equal to 0, and this is graded commutative. So what I mean by that is you take a element in nth degree x and element in m degree y, then x times y is up to a sign y times x, where the sign is exactly minus 1 to the power m times n, where m and n are the corresponding degrees of x and y. Okay, and there is this another important relation. So if you take a symbol a comma 1 minus a, that is 0, where a and 1, okay, actually I should have written 1 minus a is also non-zero in the field. And more generally, if you have n symbols, n elements in the field, non-zero, such that their sum is either 0 or 1, then the symbol associated to this n many elements, a1 up to an, is 0 in this nth Milnor K theory of the field F. Okay. So this Milnor K theory has nice properties. So there are some nice important maps associated to them. So first is the residue map. So let me start with the field, which has a discrete valuation on it. I call it mu, and let O be the corresponding valuation ring, and let pi be a uniformizer for the valuation with the residue field kappa. Then there is you can relate the Milnor K theory of F to the Milnor K theory of kappa, the residue field. Okay, and the map I will denote it as partial upscript pi. So this goes from nth degree of nth Milnor K theory of field to n minus 1 Milnor K theory of kappa. So you notice the degree shift, degree minus 1. And this map is defined, it is a unique map satisfying a bunch of properties. So the first property is that if you take a tuple where all the elements are units in the valuation ring, so u1 up to un all are units, so O star is units in O, then this partial takes this symbol to 0. And if you have a symbol of the type pi comma u2 up to un, where the ui's are units and pi is the uniformizer, is a chosen uniformizer, then this partial takes it to the, it forgets the pi and assigns it to u2 bar, where u2, so u2 is in O, and you can go model the maximum ideal, so you land in kappa. So u2 bar means its corresponding class in the residue field kappa. So this makes sense. This is a n minus 1 degree symbol in Milnor K theory of kappa. Okay, and this map is uniquely determined by this assignment, for example, because you can imagine every element in F can be written as a unit times an element in power of pi, for example. Okay. Okay, so this map will be eventually used to define so that there is a Gurston complex in the right title, and there'll be Gurston complex where a bunch of terms, and there is a differential whose composition will be 0, and this differential will be defined using this residue map, amongst other things. Okay, so let me give like very brief computation of what do we know about Milnor K theory of fields. So if you take a finite field, Milnor K theory of field is 0 for n bigger than 1. If you take a number field, then it is more interesting. So for n bigger than 2, it is a direct sum of z mod 2z's, where as R1 many copies, where R1 is the number of real embeddings. And if you have a local field, for example, like QP, whose residue field is finite. So QP will have a residue field FP. Then the Milnor nth Milnor K theory of a field is uniquely divisible if n is bigger than 2. So this is a group, abelian group, which is uniquely divisible. And for in degree 2, it is a direct sum of two things, where one is a uniquely divisible subgroup, and the other is the group of roots of unity of F. Okay. So there is another important property of Milnor K theory, which was discovered by Milnor. So what happens is that if you take a so it relates Milnor K theory of the function field on F, where T is a variable, to function field of to the Milnor K theory of field and Milnor K theory of finite extensions of F. So if you think about this, Ft by Pt, where Pt is a monic irreducible polynomial, Ft by Pt is a finite field extension of F. So you take the direct sum over all such finite field extensions, which are sort of chosen with a generator. So image of T in that field will be a sort of all these finite field extensions which are monogeneous, and you can fit them into this exact sequence, which is split, which is important for us. So this partial here, this is exactly the coming from the residue map, because Ft will be a discretely valued field with a valuation coming from this polynomial Pt. Okay, and using this, this is called BAS, sometimes called BAS state Milnor exact sequence. So using this exact sequence, actually the splitting of it, you can define a norm map. So what I mean by that is you take a finite field extension F to E. Then there is a somehow other way map, wrong way map, sometimes called, from Milnor K theory of E to Milnor K theory of F. Of course, there is always a map from Milnor K theory of F to Milnor K theory of E, induced by the inclusion. But this norm map is interesting, which goes in the other direction. Okay. So this is a brief sketch of how to get this map. So start with the E, which is a finite field extension. Assume that you have chosen a generator of somehow something like primitive element, and you can write E as a Ft by Pt, where Pt is some monic irreducible polynomial. So you can imagine E sitting inside this direct sum. Okay, and now you choose a section, and now there is a on Ft there is a nice valuation at infinity, sometimes called. What you do is you take a look at this degree valuation coming from degrees of the fractions, and it has a uniform, and choose a uniformizer -1 by T. So with respect to that choice, of course, if that valuation, the residue field of Ft is F, so you get a residue map. So this is vertical map, and you choose a section and define the composition. So on the component from E, so you get a map which a priori depends upon the generator of E over F. Okay, and it turns out there is a non-trivial theorem which says that it actually is independent of the choice of generators. And moreover, if you have a say three field extensions like F to E to K, okay, and each of them are finite, each consecutive ones are finite, then you can individually you have 3 norm maps. And it turns out that the norm of K over F as a map is same as norm of K over E pre-composed with norm of E over F. Okay.
Yes, it seems to me that here you're assuming that E is separable over F. Is it?
No. So I'm actually assuming, okay, here I'm assuming that E has a generator.
Because E has a primitive element, right?
Yeah, some generator. And this map will a priori depend on that generator. So I should add a notation that norm of E over F with a round bracket X, where X is generator. Yeah. And then there is a non-trivial theorem which says that it is actually independent of X, this choice of generator. So this works for any field. Is that fine?
Yeah, go on.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, so now let me connect this Milnor K theory with some other non-trivial things that people want to understand. So that which was the motivation for Milnor when he invented this Milnor K theory. So he was interested in studying quadratic forms. So he took a field which is of characteristic not equal to 2, and he was interested in studying quadratic forms over the field F. And there was already a notion of bit ring of F. So this is just you look at there is a notion of isometry of quadratic forms. Then you look at isometric classes, and then you define some sort of we make a group out of it by adding all these equivalence isometric classes. And inside that, so this is this bit ring of F. Okay. And you look at the so this is a ring. So you can actually multiply two quadratic form, this equivalence classes, by something called tensor of quadratic forms. And you look at the sub ideal, which is of those quadratic forms which are of even rank. So quadratic form comes with a bilinear form and a vector space, if you want to think about it like that. Then the rank is the dimension of the vector space, underlying vector space. So you look at the ideal generated by those quadratic forms which are of even rank. Okay. So this is something sometimes called fundamental ideal, and you can take the power of it. Okay. And he was interested in this quotients. So this is a graded ring. You can take the direct sum over n, in by I to the power n plus 1. And he was interested in that. And he wanted to, he realized that there is a connection between Milnor K theory and this using this Pfister forms. So this is the assignment. You take a symbol A in degree 1, and you assign to a dimension 2 bilinear form with a diagonal form given by 1 and minus a. And of course, you can extend it with the degree n. So if a1 a2 an, you take 1 comma minus a1 tensor with 1 comma minus a2 and up to tensor with 1 comma minus an. Okay, so there is this map, and on the horizontally there is a map at the degree n level. So nth Milnor K theory modulo 2 will map to this odd looking thing, which is a motivic cohomology, and you can relate it to something called Galois cohomology with coefficients in mu2, where mu2 is the second root of unity in the field, mu2 tensor power n. So this is some kind of Galois cohomology, if you want to think about it. And this assigns a Milnor symbol to a class in Galois cohomology. So it is sometimes called Galois symbol. And the theorem is that when the field is not characteristic is not equal to 2, both these maps are isomorphisms. So this somehow gives you an shows the importance of this Milnor K theory, which connects this theory of quadratic forms, which are studied using this graded ring, or I to the power n by I to the power n plus 1, to the Galois cohomology, which is somehow related to motivic cohomology. Okay. So this is just to give an idea about how this fits into the other important objects. Okay. So going back to the topic of the talk. So this was Kato's result in 1996, where he started with the X, which is an excellent scheme. So historically, Milnor K theory was defined only for fields. Then people came with the idea of, you start with the scheme, then every point will have a residue field. So this is what it means. If you start with any point X in capital X, there is a residue field. There is a local ring, you can take the residue field. Now every residue field have a Milnor K theory on it. So you want to somehow put all this together and get a complex out of it. So Kato was able to prove that if you take a scheme, which is excellent scheme. So there is some technical concept, which is somehow has to do with, it behaves nicely with normalizations and so on, and completions. So for example, if I take an excellent scheme, if I take a normalization, if I take a general scheme, I take a normalization will map to X. It may not be a finite map. So but if the original scheme is excellent, then this map is always finite. Map from normalization of X to X is always finite, which is useful geometrically. So you start with the assumption where X is excellent scheme of dimension D, and then you consider this chain of abelian groups, where the first term. So what is X0? X0 is, you look at codimension 0 points of X. So these are like generic points of the reducible components of X, and for each such a point, you look at the residue field and look at the Milnor K field. Okay, and now this next object is direct sum over X1, where X1 is a codimension 1 points of X. So I mean, if I'm looking at codimension X to the power D, these are again codimension D points of X. Okay, so this is the direct sum over, and this maps D, they are defined using the combination of residue maps that I defined earlier and the norm maps. So both the maps have to be used to make sense of this D. Okay, so you have a chain of abelian groups with maps going the right way, and now you have to actually check that decomposed D is 0, that it actually forms a complex. So this was the result by Kato, that for any excellent scheme of dimension D, this complex, this chain, this sequence of abelian groups is actually a complex. And in degree P, so this is based in degree 0. The first term is in degree 0. This is in degree 1. This is degree D. Okay, this is our convention. And we denote the cohomology at the degree P as a P X comma K. So this is just a notation to keep for bookkeeping. Okay, so let me check my time. Okay. So what is the Gersten conjecture that is in the title? So let A be a regular local ring of dimension D. Okay, then Gersten conjecture states that the complex that Kato gave, which makes sense for A, is actually exact in the degrees bigger than or equal to 1. So we don't know if the first map is almost never injective. Yeah, but from degree 1 onwards, this sequence, this complex is exact. So this is the conjecture. Okay, so again, spec AP in degree P will denote the set of codimension P points of spec A. So this is a conjecture which is still open in its most general form. Okay, so the first major breakthrough was in 2009-2010 by Moritz Kurz, where he took a regular local ring over a field, so it contains a field, and he showed that Gersten's conjecture is true. So in that case, if so let me look at the complex again. So in this complex, if A is actually a regular local ring containing a field, then he was able to show that this complex is exact in degrees bigger than or equal to 1. Okay. And more recently, there was some progress. So Luders in 2020 was able to show that suppose you have a X. So again, so this is my scheme X, which is a spectrum of a smooth local ring over excellent DVR. Okay, so where the base now is not a field, but a DVR with nice properties. And so what to do is you take a smooth scheme over a DVR, and you take a point on the smooth scheme, and you take the local ring of the smooth scheme at the point, and that is my spectrum of that is my X. Okay, so for X, this X, you can talk about this complex, and he was able to show that for degrees bigger than or equal to 1, this is exact. Again, the first map is almost never injected. Okay, so this is the explanation of the notation, what I mean by this phrase. So I start with the DVR R, I take a smooth scheme over spec R, I choose a point, and I take a local ring of the smooth scheme at the point, and take the spectrum of it. So that is my X. Okay. So this uses non-trivial paper by Marcus Rost on cycle modules and Chinese remainder theorem trick. Okay. Yeah. So now I will talk about the result I had this year. So I generalize this result slightly. in the sense that I want to replace this base as a DVR by a regular Henselian domain. Okay, and that's X is not necessarily now just a local ring, but actually Henselization of a local ring of a smooth scheme over that base at a point. Okay, so I want to replace X by not just a local ring, but its Henselization, and over a base which is not DVR but slightly more general. Okay, so this is the scenario. So I take a base S to be a spectrum of a regular Henselian domain. X is the Henselization of a smooth S scheme at a point, and then we want to show this. You look at the same complex, and now the difference is that for degrees which are bigger than or equal to dimension of X, one can show that this tail of this complex is exact. So before the dimension S, the degrees less than dimension S, it's somehow inconclusive. Like you can't use the techniques fail. So the result I was able to show is that for degrees bigger than or equal to dimension S, it is exact. So this recovers Luder's result, which I showed earlier. Okay, so I have about I think 7-8 minutes. Yeah. So let me
9 minutes.
10 minutes, right? Okay. Yeah, great. So let me explain. So this is just a notation. What I mean by X, a spectrum of a local ring of smooth scheme at a. Oh, actually, I should have said a spectrum of a Henselization of a local ring of a smooth scheme at over Specker. Okay. So to give the idea of what is involved, so I will give a sketch of the Luder's proof. And so because the original proof of the general result is very much motivated by Luder's argument, but at the right places you have to make a replacement by some general results.
S is local, right?
Here X is now essentially smooth.
No, S is local, right?
Yeah, S is actually I want to take any affine domain, which is.
No, but then what do you mean by Henselian non-local domain?
Oh yeah, actually, yeah, you're right. You're right. Yeah. I mean, actually, S is a spectrum of a local ring, where R is a regular Henselian integral domain, which is local. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, so my plan is to give an idea of what is involved in the Luder's argument. So this is sort of geometrically much more easier to explain. So let's this is the result that we want to show. We want to take a symbol in codimension P, where P is bigger than or equal to 1. And somehow I want to take a cohomology class, and I want to show that, okay, I want to take for example, let me try to explain here. If I start with an element in this direct sum of degree 1, whose D is 0, I want to show it is an image of the previous differential. Okay, that's what we want to show. In every degree where a degree is positive. Okay. So in our situation, my base is, I will denote the base as spectrum of DVR, which is S. X is my spectrum of a local ring of a smooth scheme at a point V. And to think about V, what we can do is just observe that S is a DVR, so it has only 2 points scheme theoretically. It has a closed point, which is maximal ideal, and the zero ideal, which will correspond to the generic point. I will denote it by eta. So S is just topologically, it is just a union of 2 things: this closed point and the generic point. And V over S is a disjoint union of these 2 things topologically. So Vs is just a fiber over little s over the closed point, and V eta is a generic fiber. Okay. Now, if you want to think about closed subschemes of V, which are irreducible of positive codimension, okay. So I will write them as this, where Y is the, for example, generic point of the Y is the point of codimension P, and I'd like to take its closure, and so it is either vertical or it is horizontal. So it intersects the generic fiber. So this is just a language I want to use, that either you have a closed subscheme of positive codimension, which is either vertical or horizontal. Okay. So technically speaking, I want to say horizontal means this closed subscheme is flat over the base S. Okay, this is a technical language.
So vertical over the generic point, right?
I want to take well, will that be closed subscheme of B?
It depends, because B is not proper over S, right?
B is not proper over S.
Yeah, then it can happen.
Mm. Yeah, but okay, in that case, yeah, if you have a closed subscheme of
But the point is that if you have a closed subscheme which is vertical over the generic point, you can use the original classical Milnor K theory, Milnor conjecture to classical Gaston conjecture.
yeah, I say, yeah, because in that case it will be over the residue field.
Right. No, it will over
the residue field of the generic point.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, okay, thanks. Yeah, because in this scenario, it all the Y that we'll be interested in will start with which is in the special fiber, and then we'll sort of spread it so that it becomes horizontal. Okay, so let me I'm jumping a bit. Okay, so we are interested in this p degree cohomology in degree p of X with coefficient similar K theory, where remember X was a spectrum of a local ring at a point, right, of V. So local ring is a direct limit of the coordinate rings of various Zariski open neighborhoods. So this gives me that the cohomology of degree p is a direct limit of degree p cohomology of U's, where U's are varying over Zariski neighborhoods of V in this capital V. Okay, so V is the big variety over S, and I'm varying over various Zariski neighborhoods of little v, and I'm interested in the direct limit, which will give me the original cohomology. Okay, so we need to understand AP U comma Kn Milnor, where U is a general Zariski neighborhood of little v. Okay, so let's think about this APU Kn Milnor. So this is a colimit of APU, which is where the complex which is supported on closed subschemes of U, where all closed subschemes of U. Okay, so we need to understand. So if I start with any symbol, any element in this cohomology or any class in this cohomology, it is represented by a class in some U, homology of some U, right? And by the second equality, it will correspond to some Y, and it will be represented by a class in APU over Y for some Y. Okay. Now the idea is that once you have a cohomology class which is supported on Y, which is a priori any closed subscheme, okay, we want to spread it somehow in the cohomology such that it is supported on closed subschemes which are horizontal over S. Okay, so a priori Y could be vertical in our picture, but if I start with any symbol on this Y closure in the cohomology group, I want to spread it over this various such WIs, where these WIs are now flat over S. Okay, so this is the first idea. And second idea is that once you have a cohomology class supported on horizontal closed subschemes, we want to show that I can change U by a Zariski neighborhood, a smaller one, such that this induced map is 0. So given such a closed subscheme which is flat, you can choose a U prime small enough so that this induced map of cohomology on U prime supported on Y cross, so just the inverse image, to cohomology on U prime maps to 0. So this in the total colimit, the cohomology class I started with will be 0. Okay, so this is the idea. So the second idea I won't be able to explain because short of time. This involves something called geometric presentation lemma, an older version by Gillet and Levine. And the result that I show, I use a sort of generalization of this result called a version of Gaber's presentation lemma. So I won't be explaining the second piece, but I will try to explain the first idea, how to spread a cohomology class supported on a vertical closed subscheme to a cohomology class on closed subschemes which are flat over this. Okay. So we have this pictorial thing. So start with the point Y in UP. So this will give me a symbol and a symbol in the Milnor K theory of kappa of y, this is the residue field of y, in the degree n minus p. Okay, so if you think about the Gersten complex, in the degree p of the complex, they are made up of these symbols, where in the degree p, I'm looking at kn minus p. Okay, where alpha is are alpha I bars are the non-zero elements in kappa y. Okay. Now what you do is there is a lemma by Saito and Sato, which what happens is that you cover this y closure by a bigger, so y closure has codimension p in u. Okay, so actually I'm replacing v by u now. Yeah, and you find a bigger closed subscheme of codimension exactly -1, so codimension p -1, so one dimension bigger, containing y closure, and more importantly, this z is regular at this generic point y. Okay, and z intersects the generic fiber. So it has these two important properties, that z is regular at y and z intersects the generic fiber. Now what you do, you look at codimension 1 points of z. Okay, now z will have codimension 1 points, which are so y is one of them, because y is of codimension p in a codimension p -1 closed subscheme. So y is a codimension 1 in z, and z will have a bunch of other points. Okay,
So Rakesh, you are 1 minute past your time.
oh sorry, okay, I'm almost done, I think. Okay, and what to do, you using Chinese remainder theorem, you cook up this symbol on a residue field of z, or a generic point of z, whose differential is this symbol plus a bunch of terms which are now supported on this green horizontal closed subschemes, which are now flat. So if you think about in the cohomology group, my symbol is up to a boundary given by sum of symbols which are supported on closed subschemes which are flat over the base. And now use the second idea that I had mentioned to finish the argument. Okay, yeah, thanks. Sorry for going over time.
Okay, so let's thank the speaker for this nice talk. So if there are any questions or comments, please raise them now. Okay, so if since there are no questions, let me ask some questions.
Please.
So yeah, my first question is, in this argument, you said that, okay, you suppose you have some vertical, you have some point which lies in the vertical closed fiber.
Mm-hmm.
Then you say that you somehow you can choose something which is horizontal and plus which is regular at that point on the vertical closed fiber, right?
Yeah, this z.
Yes. So do you also, and you only need that such jet should be flat over the base.
Yeah.
So I could not see in this whole argument then, where did you assume that X is smooth over S?
So this is used in the second part of the argument. So this bit. So once you have a closed subscheme y in U, so for example, U is now smooth, right? X is I can take U to be smooth over the base.
Yeah.
So now you have a closed subscheme which is flat over S. Okay, where so Y is sitting inside U, and U is flat smooth over S. Now in this situation, there is this geometric presentation lemma says that you can choose a neighborhood of so there is assumption of smoothness on U over S. Then you can choose a Zariski neighborhood of U prime of little v, such that when you take the pullback of U prime of Y, okay, so that is flat, that is actually that is actually finite over some actually quasi-finite over some affine space. over some scheme. Yeah, this is this version of geometric presentation. So this is where the assumption of smoothness will be crucially used. Yeah, to go from flat to this sort of triviality, sort of at the Zariski locally. And in my thing, what I have to do is I have similar statement where I have to take Nisnevich neighborhood, and that's where the base S is Henselian being used, Henselian local. Because
that's okay, but yeah, so but is it necessary to assume that your X is smooth over the base, in the sense that can't you use, because I guess all this cohomology of the Milnor or the Guston complex have some continuity properties. So can you not use some kind of purposeful approximation of regular by some smooth over the base or something?
Approximation. What kind of approximation you said?
To remove the smoothness condition.
I see. So start with something X which is finite type over S.
And just regular.
Okay, just regular over S.
Yes.
And then you want to find some sort of smooth approximation. I see.
Yeah. So, and then you can do limit argument to say that the theorem works over that also. So where is the abstraction in that? So anyway, I think you can look at it like where is the problem? Why do you need smoothness argument? A smoothness in your argument.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, that's what. So, and you said that you need Henselian to do what? To go to Nisnevich neighborhood.
Yeah. So in this Gauer presentation bit.
Yes.
Here the presentation lemma we have, it says that you can, so you have U or S and a close and a subscheme.
Yeah.
Which is some nice, not exactly flat. So you have to replace by this flat condition by something else. So this is called positive codimension or a relative positive codimension. So what I mean by that is you take the special fiber of Y. The codimension of special fiber of Y inside the big special fiber is positive. So this is the assumption that you want to replace with the flatness. Okay, with that assumption, you can choose you can replace U by Nisnevich neighborhood of U and Nisnevich neighborhood of S, and then you have the same sort of diagram by changing S by the base by Nisnevich neighborhood as well as U by Nisnevich neighborhood. So if my base is Henselian, then I don't have to worry about the base. So that's why this assumption of base being Henselian.
I see. Okay. Okay, so yeah, so if there are no other question, let's thank Rakesh again.
Thank you.